communicated with all of my provincial counterparts. I haven't had an opportunity with my territorial counterparts on this, but their response was very favorable, as I think you'll hear. They really do feel that they need more time to be able to look at this. I will state again that the question at issue here is a question of readiness. We accept equivalency in the suffering of mental suffering and physical suffering. And of course, here we're talking about mental illness. It shouldn't be conflated with mental health concerns. But I will lastly say that the time that we have to adopt this is limited. We certainly are having conversations, Minister Virani and I, with our opposition counterparts, because we have a looming date in March by which we have to get this done in limited sitting days. But I once again want to thank the Joint Committee for its work. So the committee process really on the Senate and House side has been completed through that work, and the consultations they had and their recommendations were key to the decision that was made today in the legislation that we tabled. I'll turn it over to Minister Virani, and then je peux répéter les choses en français.
And I'll just add to that, we've also had some conversations with Senator Mark Gold with respect to the assistance of the Senate in ensuring the expeditious passage of this bill. We've reflected on this very clearly in terms of what we've learned from not just this most recent study by the Joint Committee, but it's really actually the second study of this issue reflected on that. And what we are saying to Canadians is that because of the significance of the decision, because of the nature of the consequences of this kind of policy, we have to ensure that we get it right, and we're determined to do just that, and putting a pause on it for the next 3 years will ensure the system readiness, which is what the healthcare system has indicated is required and what Canadians are asking. Thank you.
Qu'est-ce que vous répondez aux gens qui avaient beaucoup d'espoir dans l'élargissement, qui trouvent que ce que vous faites aujourd'hui, c'est cruel de laisser un délai encore de 3 ans comme c'était prévu, comme la Cour l'a demandé?
Je comprends bien. Les situations sont tellement difficiles et vraiment émotives, mais quand même, c'est essentiel que le système est prêt. Et alors, avec ça, on doit attendre quelques temps de plus. Dans deux années, on peut, avec une comité parlementaire, on peut à ce moment-là trouver si le système est prêt à ce moment-là. Et autour de ça, c'est pas un grand nombre de personnes qui est dans la situation que vous expliquez, mais c'est tellement triste et je comprends ça bien. Mais c'est
d'attendre après la prochaine élection fédérale?
Oui, c'est pas une question d'élection. C'est une question de si le système est prêt pour le changement. Alors, c'est une élection ou des choses partisanes c'est pas important. C'est vraiment l'issue, c'est est-ce que le système est prêt pour le changement?
The issue is the system ready for the change?
Well, in talking, we had a very good conversation in Charlottetown, and where we went deep on the conversation I did with all of my provincial and territorial counterparts.
What's the rationale for 3 years?
No, that's what I'm coming to. Yeah. So, and they said that they're not there, and that they need a significant amount of additional time.
Why?
And
what is the rationale for the significant time?
That's what I'm getting to. So the problem is that you have the curriculum, you have the materials that people have to get trained by, and in order for the system to do that training and to get people ready to make sure that the right decisions are made. Again, what we're talking about here, and it's an important distinction, we're talking about people with intractable mental illness circumstances who have been suffering and tried absolutely everything, and that they get to the end of that journey and they on their own recognizance make a decision that they've tried everything and that they want to access MAID. What we want to make sure is that the system is trained to that standard, that the curriculums are adopted, and that the systems have fully metabolized what the intention is. And what we heard, what I specifically heard from my health counterparts in provinces and territories, is in order to get to that state, they were going to need a significant amount of time.
But did they commit to 3 years? Did they commit to 3 years, though? Because they're asking for an indefinite pause the other day. So what commitments do you have that provinces will be ready in 3 years when you might not even be in government?
Well, so first of all, there were 7 provinces that asked for an indefinite pause, but an indefinite pause is not we will never get ready. There has to be an imperative to move towards a condition that recognizes the equivalency between mental and physical suffering. And I think there's a real risk, and Minister Varani can speak to the legal risk if we don't act on that constitutionally. But there's a moral imperative for us to get the systems ready. So by setting out a timeline of 3 years, it's an indication that the systems need to move towards readiness. And at 2 years, there's the opportunity to do another review and to assess the readiness of the system through a parliamentary process.
3 senators are accusing you of intentionally misleading Canadians by saying that the healthcare system isn't ready for this, and they're saying that you're punting this down the road, and maybe with the cynical perspective that this will never happen. How would you respond to that?
Well, first of all, Senator Kuchar, I know, has been very passionate on this. I greatly respect him. He's somebody who really is coming from a place of caring. And so I understand, his passion in this. But what I would say is every single province, every territory said they're not ready. CAMH said they're not ready. The Canadian Mental Health Association said they're not ready. So, I appreciate that, that there are some people who feel that we're ready, but when those that are going to be delivering the services in the provinces and territories, be they New Democratic governments, Conservative governments, or a Liberal government, all are universally saying they're not ready. And when you have those that are the leaders in this field, like CAMH and the Canadian Mental Health Association, saying they need more time, we have to listen to that.
If I could just add, just important sort of step back perspective, right? Healthcare is primarily in this country delivered by the provinces. The provinces and territories are indicating they're not ready. We need to listen to that as a responsible and prudent federal government. First point, if I could just finish. Second point is that to those who are criticizing us, I would say that there are people that want this to happen tomorrow, and there are people that want this to never happen, including some of the people in the parliament that's right behind me. What we are saying is that this will happen on the go forward. We're not saying never. We're putting a pause in terms of the timing. That pause is informed by everything that Minister Holland and I have heard about the system readiness. It is not ready right now. We heard that from doctors. We heard that from nurses. We heard that from psychiatric professionals. And if I could just add, the other important thing to calibrate here is that throughout this entire experience with implementing MAID in response to the Carter decision, we've always had a delicate balance in mind. That is, how do you empower autonomy and dignity on the part of an individual, and at the same time ensure that vulnerable people are protected. It is on the protections of the vulnerable that we need to ensure that those safeguards are in place and those safeguards are understood and are ready to be implemented by the healthcare system. That's why we're having a pause.
Daniel Smith introduced some new changes in Alberta that would make some changes to transgender kids, to sports, to policies in schools. And I want to know, the government has introduced legislation to protect trans youth in the past. Is there a role, has your government discussed any type of action on this? Is this something that might fall into a category of withholding health funding, for example?
I'm deeply disturbed. The decision that was made by Alberta places kids at risk. We know that one of the number one reasons why kids take their life is problems around sexual identity, and that the ability to be who you are, is so vitally important. And I thought we were in a place in this country, we voted on C3 and we stood unanimously. I thought we were in a place in this country where we were moving past this. I think it's extremely dangerous to engage in this kind of thing, which is, I think, playing politics when you're talking about children's lives. And so affirming gender, making sure that kids and families have the health care that they need on extremely sensitive issues is so very important. So what are we going to do? I'm going to be in Alberta very soon. I'm going to be meeting with Adriana Lagrange. I've had a very strong working relationship with her. I want to talk through these issues. I want to see if we can find a solution through talking to really understand what this is going to mean and the devastation that it's going to bring, so that we can find an off-ramp. That's my first priority, is to try through communicating, and as I say, I'll be in Alberta very soon to have that face-to-face meeting. That's the first step.
Est-ce que vous pouvez nous répéter votre réaction à la démarche?
C'est tellement triste et c'est pas acceptable, pas du tout.
It's very sad. It's not
C'est
acceptable.
pour des jeunes filles et hommes l'identité sexuelle. Et ça, c'est essentiel que quelqu'un peut...
Sexual identity issue, it's essential, critical.
Être lui-même. C'est quelqu'un qui
So
peut
that these people can be themselves.
dans la façon que les personnes veulent. Et
She doesn't-
quand
that these people don't want to be intimidated.
présenter une position comme ça menace la
And
santé
to show a position like that, it's threat.
des jeunes filles et des jeunes hommes dans notre
To youth.
dans l'Alberta, mais partout au pays,
In
parce que
Alberta,
c'est
but
continuer
throughout
d'attaquer les
Canada,
personnes
and
qui sont tellement
to
vulnérables.
attack people.
Alors, je vais parler avec mon homologue, avec Adriana
I will
Legrange.
speak with the person in
Adriana
Alberta.
est tellement raisonnable et je vais chercher pour une solution
And
parce
I'll
que
try to
l'impact
find a
de cette
solution with that
politique-là,
person.
c'est désastreux.
It's a disaster,
Going
that
back to MAID, sir.
position.
You have a responsibility under the Constitution to minimally impair people's rights, and the courts have said people have a right to this. So I'd like to understand why you didn't allow provinces who think they're ready before 3 years to proceed if their health systems are ready.
Well, there's no province that says they're ready. So,
Now, you said, but
well, no.
but
I
in the
mean,
next few years, if
So
a province
look,
deems them their system ready, why would you not permit a province to be able to do that?
whether or not it's new Democratic governments, conservative governments, or a Liberal government, all of them said that they needed a substantive amount of time.
Nova Scotia and PR
and
said they were more prepared than others.
so some are more prepared than others,
Exactly. So to the
but look, we have to get this right. This is extremely challenging. This is enormously sensitive, and I think that there's two components that are at play here. One is making sure that the system, that the training has taken place, that people understand the curriculum and the circumstances under the extremely limited circumstances under which is.
Next year, why not let them
I have
go ahead
have
and
not
do it?
heard, and I've spoken to all of my provincial counterparts. I will admit I didn't have an opportunity to communicate with my territorial counterparts this morning. All of my provincial counterparts felt very comfortable with the timeline. I had none of them push back. They all appreciated the opportunity to get their systems ready. They all appreciated how much work was in front of them, and it gives them an opportunity to have a clear work-to date in order to get there. And frankly, we want to have uniformity in an approach so that when this happens, it's available all across the country. Sorry, last question. I didn't get one. Sorry, here.
You're waiting some 8 years to respond to the Shershon ruling.
Yes, who's here? Minister Brani, and then we'll go there.
Yeah, if I could just address this point because it's very, very fundamental. MAID obviously deals with the healthcare system, but the legislative tool is the Criminal Code of Canada. We have a unitary system with respect to criminal law in this country. We don't carve out exceptions on a province-by-province basis. So it's very important, as you've seen all along since 2016, as we've implemented MAID, as we expanded MAID, it has been nationally, not province by province. That's very important. If I could just touch on the Alberta point, I would say also that one needs to reflect on this as a parent. I'm a dad, Mark's a dad. Parents have these conversations all the time with children. They need to be able to have those conversations with children. Sometimes children don't feel empowered to have those conversations. That's a small amount of children around the country, an even smaller amount in Alberta. I think actually targeting that small minority for some political purpose in Alberta, as it seems that the Premier is doing, is not becoming of her office and is in fact actually targeting and perhaps even demonizing those children. We're not talking about their exploration of their sexuality when we're banning kids from a schoolyard or from a playground or from a sports team. That looks more targeted, and that's what I have significant concerns about. There's nothing to go, that is a completely speculative question. They've announced what they're thinking about doing. They've not tabled anything. There's no legislation. There's nothing to be taken to court. I'm not going to speculate about future processes.
Legal risk in not doing, in indefinitely pausing this. Is there not a legal risk in waiting some 8 years to respond to the Shershon ruling by kicking this down the line?
I'm not going to speculate as to what a court will do or not do with respect to the decision we're taking today. We know that the courts have been heavily involved, going back to the Rodriguez case, the Carter case, the Truchon case. It is entirely possible that people will avail themselves of their rights in the court of law as they are able to under our Charter of Rights. That's a good thing if people want to pursue that route. What the most important thing that people need to understand, particularly people that Mark was talking about, people that are suffering right now, is that we understand their suffering. We feel mental suffering needs to be treated similarly to physical suffering. We are putting in place as many supports as possible through the healthcare accord that Mark and others were involved in to support that suffering. suffering, and we're working hard to ensure that the healthcare system is ready to address that suffering, even through medical assisted dying, but it's going to take more time.
You're not saying what you're going to do.
Okay, I haven't gone here. I'm going to go here. Last question.
Bon, c'est ça. Sur les demandes anticipées, il y a un décalage avec le Québec. Pourquoi ne pas profiter de votre
With the
projet de
delay
loi pour
with Québec,
permettre
not,
des demandes anticipées d'aide médicale
Ah,
Oui,
And,
alors, il y a
take advantage
beaucoup
of that.
de questions sur
There are many questions surrounding
l'aide médicale à mourir et ça,
MAID.
certainement, j'ai parlé avec le Bloc
I've
québécois,
talked
avec le ministre Dubé sur
with
les
people with
questions
Quebec
de demande
and the
anticipée.
minister.
Mais à ce moment-là,
But at this time,
la conversation va continuer, mais il n'y a pas une
the
plainte de
conversation will
présenter un projet de
continue,
loi ou d'agir dans ce
but there's
domaine
no
à ce
reason
moment-là.
to act to have a law